Hey Orca's revenue wasn't just flat, it was sliding. And there was nothing underneath them to catch the fall. That's a scary place to be. Joe Teo is the CEO and co-founder of Hey Orca. And a few years back, that's exactly where he found himself. His marketing systems were running and the team was doing the work, but paid ads had stopped delivering and there was no real plan B. What he figured out on the other side of that changed how he grows his business today. And Hey Orca is thriving because of it. This conversation is about how he turned things around and where marketing is actually headed. So whether you have a marketing challenge right now or not, pull up a chair for this one. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Small But Mighty Agency podcast. Growing a boutique agency can feel like you're always the underdog, competing against bigger shops with bigger budget. But small agencies aren't the underdogs. You're the upgrade. Here on this podcast, I'll help you see your size as the advantage it actually is and build a business that's profitable, sustainable, and doesn't depend on you to keep running. I'm your host, Audrey Joy Kwan. I've worked behind the scenes in multiple seven-figure agencies, coached and consulted with more than 180 agency owners, and supported an agency owner through a successful sale and exit. I'm also the founder of Agency Together, a community where boutique agency owners build the collaborations and strategic partnerships that help them grow. Here on the podcast, you'll get real-world insights and practical ideas to help you work less, earn more, and grow without burning out. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Joe Teo, the CEO and co-founder of Hey Orca, a social media management platform that helps teams and agencies build stronger communities. We're talking about something I think a lot of marketers and business owners are really feeling right now. What happens when paid ads are not working the way they used to? Attention is harder to earn, and growth starts asking something different of all of us. Joe has been thinking and writing about what it means to grow through community, not just through more content or more spend. In this conversation, we get into how community-led marketing helps scale Hey Orca, which shifted when they moved away from being overly reliant on paid ads, and why trust, belonging, and participation matter so much in today's market. Joe is also the author of Community-Led Marketing. And outside of work, he describes himself as a dad in training to two young kids, navigating the beautiful chaos of business and family in Newfoundland. Joe, welcome. I'm really glad to have you here with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. It's great to see you after a couple months from Vancouver. So that's really awesome to be able to get connected again.
The funny thing is we actually met at a event where you were talking about community, and I really aligned with everything you were saying about where the future is headed. And it's about people, it's about relationships. A large reason for that is marketing has a trust problem. And I think you make that case in the book that you wrote. Mm-hmm. And I really agree with that. I think we're in the moment where broadcasting more, posting more, and even spending more doesn't automatically create the kind of trust or connection that actually moves people. So I'd love to talk about how you see community-led marketing as a response to that, especially in a world shaped by really low attention span. And of course, we've got AI and, like we just said, declining trust. So to start simple, what was happening at Hey Orca that made you realize the paid ad playbook was no longer enough?
Yeah, I mean, like if we go back to 2016, 2017, we wanted to scale our marketing efforts, and paid ads at that time was one of the channels that we really invested in. So we have a good product, we have product market fit, and we had a small group of customers, the initial base of customers that really love the Hey Orca experience. And so I brought in my first head of marketing. And one of the first things that he did was to really invest in paid advertising, because that's the fastest way to get in front of people. So it worked really well in the first year. And the second year, we doubled down on it. So it worked until it didn't, until more people are on Meta as a platform. There's more competition, audience fatigue starts setting in, creative fatigue starts setting in, all the complexities that come with scaling your ads, and what I call ad inflation. The same amount of dollar just doesn't give you the additional mileage that you're looking for. And we didn't have any plan B, because we were thinking that we need to stay focused. We need to build a product, scale paid ads, hopefully get more investments. And the whole plan came to a halt when we couldn't raise the amount that we needed for the next round of investments. And we really needed to take it back to the studs, really asking ourselves, this is not very sustainable. What we're doing is not sustainable at all. And what are some of the other ways that we can do? And because of the constraint, because of that moment, we were, I would say, backed in a corner, and we had to find another growth channel that really helped us ignite the growth again. And long story short, found it through community-led marketing, really focusing on our users, focusing on attracting the right kind of attention versus just spending money on the top. So that's how we sort of stumbled upon what we call community-led marketing, which is focusing on your customers and focusing on creating a great experience for them.
When we talk about creating a great experience for our clients and our customers, we often look at certain types of communication vehicles. People think, okay, if I put together a newsletter, then I am reaching out to my community and building community. Or if I do a webinar, then bringing people together. Or if I have a Facebook group, then hey, I've got community. Yeah. And these are what we call containers. Did you have those containers, or did you start to build them in your business?
Yeah, we had to figure something out. And so we said, let's try different things, right? So we couldn't just rely on paid ads. And so we started putting together our Facebook group, our newsletter, then we tried webinars. And then we realized that we weren't getting the response that we were hoping for. So we have these systems. So when we think about marketing, we think about systems, but also the second layer that you need to think about is the content. What are you putting out there? And we had the systems going. So I think we had the right systems. We had the newsletter, we had the webinars, we had social media, but we weren't getting the response. And what was missing really at that point was the type of content that we're putting out there. The type of content would influence the feeling that you generate with your audience or your community in those spaces. And what we were doing with our webinars was, it was very focused on trying to get the Hey Orca brand out there, trying to get the Hey Orca positioning out there. So it's very product focused. It was very about what we can do for them. And we started as a product. And so that didn't quite get the engagement that we wanted. And we really asked ourselves, I think we really need to set aside the conversion event that we won, which is people signing up for Hey Orca, and really ask ourselves, how can we be of service for them? So instead of asking what value are we trying to get out of this community, we should ask, what value are we giving them? Why should they follow us? Why should they attend our webinar? Why should they give us the attention? And so when we sort of flip the script and ask what value they're looking for, it really changed how we approach content. At that time, I call it karma marketing. I say we got to put good karma out there, put good things out there that our customers, prospective customers, would find value in. And I believe that that would build trust and build a sense of belonging, and therefore it would increase the likelihood of trying Hey Orca out. And so we had the systems, but what was missing at that point was the content, and the content that actually creates sense of belonging. And you do that by actually providing value. So it's very fundamental, like human things that we actually found out.
Keyword there, you said sense of belonging, and you highlighted systems. You had these systems that didn't have the kind of impact you wanted to see. And because it didn't have the impact, it wasn't creating that result. And I would say the impact is belonging. Mm-hmm. Creating belonging is a different concept than I am going to put up a Slack group or I am going to write a newsletter. Those are completely different concepts. Mm-hmm. Knowing that, what really changed for you when you stopped asking, or when your team stopped asking, what should we publish next? Because I think that's where you're pointing to. It's like the question shift inside the business. It's not what should we publish next? It's more, how can we invite participation?
Correct.
What changed for your business when you changed the question that you were asking in the business?
We started putting ourselves in our ICP's shoes, asking them, what value are they looking for? What is something that they're looking to us to provide value for? And then the second part, understanding that we want them to participate in our journey. So when we think about that, it changed how we actually view the spaces that we've invested in. So I'll give you an example. In the webinars, we stop just asking what kind of content should we put out that actually provide value for people. We ask ourselves instead, how do we create an environment where people can participate and feel that they're part of the experience? And I think that in the social media world, in a world that's digital, that people can actually, engage, we should take advantage of all the tools at our disposal. And one of the things with webinars is instead of like closing out the chat, instead of looking at the chat as just a Q&A space, we actually open up the chat and just allow people to participate and actually encourage people to chat and put their thoughts there. Sometimes it's like random thoughts that they have that's kind of related to it. And then people like engage in a trend that they really like. And so it changes how we actually view that space. So instead of thinking about webinar as just an education platform or education delivery platform, we start looking at the webinar as a digital experience. The content is why they come and the chat is why they stay. That's always what we say. And so we think about not only what are we putting out there, how do we invite them to participate? Same thing for social media as well. When we think about the content that we're putting out there, the content has to be engaging, obviously relevant to and attention grabbing to our audience. But we also ask ourselves a layer deeper, how do we actually invite them to participate? So inviting them to comment, or how do we actually use their comment to create the next video? And so they feel a sense of participation in the story that we're trying to tell. And so when you're actually inviting people to participate, you start creating a sense of belonging. People see that what they say matters. And the topics, for example, in webinars, we don't just put out our topics, we ask people to vote on some of the topics that they would like to see. So really, one of the big words that we use is co-creation, really understanding that it's not just consuming by your audience, but asking yourself, what do they want to talk about? And the last thing I would say, Audrey, like you asking me what I would like to talk about as well on this podcast is a very simple form of inviting the person to participate in the story building as well. And so when we think about things in terms of inviting and participation, we actually make very different choices that would fundamentally change your strategy, that would fundamentally change how people feel about your brand. And something very, very simple. It comes back to inviting people to participate in your story or in your programs.
Yes, yes, and yes. I really resonate with everything you just said. We just ran our community mixer, and on the front end of it, we have a roundtable. It's kind of like a webinar, but it has a couple of people talking about a very specific topic. And then the other half is what we call a mingler. And that's where people get to participate with each other. And every time I've ran this community event, the feedback that I get is the tail half of it is what people adore and love. And it's because they get to talk to each other. They get to express what they're thinking, what they're feeling. And I think a lot of community is about surfacing that. It's about facilitating that. It's not just a talking head anymore, sharing this is how you do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I think that type of information, there's fatigue in our online world for that.
Yeah.
I think you absolutely nail it when you're talking about how do we invite people into participation when we are thinking about building community? And it's not just community, it's even how you grow your business these days. It's that invitation for feedback that is extremely valuable.
Yeah, one of the things that we challenge ourselves is, and I would encourage your listeners to think about it as, don't just think about content in terms of consumption or publishing. Think about another angle, which is how do we make this an experience? So every content that we put out there, what is the experience side of things? How can they experience our brand? How do we create an experience for them? So when we ask that kind of question around how do we create an experience, you fundamentally change how you actually craft your content and how you show up. I'll give you an example around something as quote unquote boring as a newsletter. People would say newsletter was dead like 5 years ago, and nobody looks forward to receiving a newsletter. But newsletter is getting a resurgence right now, a new life, a new sense of life. And if you look at the newsletters that are thriving right now and the newsletters that didn't before, it was because the newsletters of the ones before are broadcasting. It's about here's what we did. Here's what you need to know about. So it's talking at you. If you look at the newsletters that you enjoy receiving, the Substacks and so forth, they're breaking the fourth wall. They're talking to you. And a lot of these modern newsletter program actually allows you to participate in their polls, actually redirects you to their Spotify, their podcast so that you can interact more and really think about how they can create a newsletter format in a way that is experiential as well, right? So when you scroll, there is certain hierarchy of experience that the writer wants you to go through. And so when we think about not just content that we're going to put out, but we also think about what do we want Audrey to experience when she's actually opening out the newsletter? Where is she going to participate? How is she going to give me feedback? How do I reward her? Then it starts changing the conversation from what's the content to what's the experience and what's the value that Audrey is looking for. And you can apply that for every single channel that you're currently managing. If you ask yourself that, you're putting the audience in the center and you're asking what's the experience that we want them to feel when they come in. And it comes down to, again, how are we inviting them to participate in our story?
I love how you shared about the resurgence of newsletters, and specifically, if we're in the world of content, Substack in particular is something that everyone's talking about. And if you've ever been onto Substack, those interactive elements are well and alive on the platform, which is why I think it is gaining such speed and popularity, because its goal isn't just to, like you said, share content. It is to build a community around it. I love the example that you gave. I want to dive back into your business for a moment. I'm curious, was there a particular experiment or turning point where you first felt that, okay, this community building thing is working? This is becoming a community and not just an audience.
Yeah, so going back to when we were backed in the corner, we were flat, like revenue was flat, even decreasing because we didn't have the money to scale our paid ads and we didn't have any alternative. And so going back to the story, we had to try everything. So we had our Facebook group, our webinar, and our newsletter. And it still didn't work because we were putting out wrong kinds of content. We're asking a wrong question. And so it comes back to the emotional side of things. How do we create a sense of belonging for people? And it comes down to, are we inviting people to participate? And also, what's the value we're giving? Those are the two missing equations. So you could have the best newsletter infrastructure, newsletter tool in the world, but you don't have value and you don't have invitation for your audience to participate, then you really don't have a sense of community. What you have is a broadcast channel, right? Mm-hmm. And so for us, that was where we were. And we first found out, I would say in our Facebook group, we start seeing the response from our users. So we come up with a hypothesis, like why would they join the Facebook group? And one of the things that we thought about was social media managers have very big FOMO about the changes in the platform. What if we actually curate, do the homework for them? And so the way we think about ourselves was, what if we're that student in school that take notes so that everyone can copy our homework? And so I remember telling Alyssa, I said, like, we're that student, okay? Like, we're going to do the homework for them and they can copy our homework. And we put out, here's the social news that you need to know about. And people really reacted to it and give us like good response. And I always say that if you want to know what is working and what's not, like just judge it by the response that people give you, right? They vote with their reactions and the comments, and you can kind of feel the digital energy as well, whether or not it's working. And so that kind of worked. Then we try something more, which is what if we do more of the homework? Memes, for example, the meme templates, right? So right now, Coachella, it's a big thing. Justin Bieber is like a meme template right now. So they're looking for that template. How can we actually curate it for them? And so we started doing that and putting it in the Canva file and just like sending it to the Facebook group. And it got really good reactions. Thank you. And all these things. And then after that, trending sounds became a thing. And so one after another, we started experimenting and realized that the commonality between all of that is value. We're hitting the right things now. This is what they're looking for. But how do we know what they're looking for in the future? And so that comes to inviting them to participate. So instead of actually just guessing, which we did at first, we just asked them, what do you want to see more of? Actually, what do you actually like? And that's actually what led us to the newsletter, really understanding if we actually compile everything in the newsletter and just give them a really short brief about what they missed, that's what they're looking for. And so we started investing in the newsletter. And the principle is the same. What's the value that they're looking for, which is the social media news? And then how do we invite them to participate in every issue? So asking them what's on their mind, what homework can we do for them? So that sort of opened up our eyes, and people start telling other people, you know, you should join this newsletter, or you should join the Facebook group because there's value and there's a sense of belonging. When you have those two together, then people start talking about your programs. Same for in real life events. If people feel like they're getting value and they feel like they're getting a sense of belonging, they want to tell other people to come with them. And so you start getting a compounding effect because one person's going to bring two people, and then they're going to bring another two, another two, another two. And then acquisition just becomes more and more efficient because of that. But it comes down to, yes, we need our systems, but how do we craft content that invites participation so that they feel a sense of ownership of this space that you've created for them?
Okay, first, I gotta say, I love how you say that belonging might not be enough,
Mm-hmm.
that there's a layer to that. There's belonging and value. Those are the two pillars that have to exist for a community to be something that people want to share. Now, because I have gone through your book, what you just shared on how to build the value and how to build the community, I know you have a framework and it centers around inviting, participating, and amplifying.
Full marks.
Right. Yay! I'm the student that people copied off of when I was in high school.
Oh, you know.
So I know. Okay, so if someone was, let's say they're just trying to start their community right now, maybe they don't have that big Facebook group where they can invite people to share what it is that is on their mind, what it is they want to see. What do you suggest? Where do people go and take step one of that framework if they don't have a big community to approach right now?
Yeah, I'd say start small. So when we first started, we were just consistent. So I would say that if you just started, ideal case scenario, you're able to put a little bit of budget behind your efforts so that you have a bigger sample size. But I would say it starts small and really starting from your network. So you'll be surprised from your network, you're able to get a solid field to scale from. I would actually, if I can be prescriptive, I probably wouldn't start with a Facebook group or a Slack community first, because that requires critical mass to actually create a sense of value. What I would start is basically the newsletter, or social media, and then the newsletter, right? So assuming your social media is good, you have good presence. If not, I would start with working on my social media presence, then really getting people to participate and inviting them to join the newsletter. Now, the newsletter then doesn't have to be a lot. You can start with 10, 20 people, and then it sort of go from there. Trying to figure out what is the value. The newsletter is actually a really good place to start too, because you can track through your open rates and your unsub rates, whether or not you're providing enough value for them. And when you start with your newsletter, you're able to track these behaviors. But this also gives you a chance to be consistent. Really, it's about consistency in the early days and getting the content market fit right, where your open rates are good and your unsubs rates are low. Then you know that you're hitting the right value proposition, the right value in the content. And then you start thinking about, how do I craft my newsletter that invites participation? Once you get it to a certain scale, then you think about, is there a case for a webinar? Is there a case for another space that I can deepen the relationship? But in the beginning, what I would say is making sure that you just get two things right: the social media and the newsletter component. If you have budget, I would always encourage putting a little bit of budget to get more people through the door, or amplifying your newsletter. That's what we did. We put paid budget so once we knew that this was a morning paper for social media managers, we put budget so that we can scale this more. And then we use lookalike audience to get more of the same people. And we're able to then nurture that community that funnels back into the Facebook group. So if you're just starting, I would say, think about who's your ICP, what's the value that you're providing, and then start with your network. And then scaling from there. Paid ads can be part of the equation. I wouldn't recommend starting with a Facebook group or a Slack first, because that requires a certain number of people. Once you get a good sense in your social media and newsletter, then I think you can consider putting them into a Facebook group or a Slack group.
So good, because you don't frame paid as evil.
No.
Actually, you frame it as useful in the right role. And I think you're emphasizing that right now. There's actually a quotable line in your book. I think it goes like this. I think you say paid can be the ignition, but it can't be the engine.
Yes.
I really like that, because we're not talking about one or the other. We're talking about, how do you layer these things in so they are effective in this new economy, this new culture with the technology that's happening right now. How do you think about the relationship between paid and community?
Yeah, so paid gives you a start. It acts as an ignition and accelerator. So if you have a value that you think you're going to offer your ideal customer profile, like for us, we want to reach social media managers, and we think that they're interested in keeping up with social media news. Paid allows us to test it faster. So instead of just relying on the open rates week after week, we are able to test it in terms of how many people are actually subscribing to the newsletter. The mistake comes if, let's say, paid is just your engine. So in our former life, paid was the only engine, which is there was the only channel that we're scaling. That was the only channel that we're investing in. And so when we get those attention, there's actually no way for them to go. They try the product, and then if they don't convert, they're just not getting nurtured. Paid needs to be an ignition of a program that you're running, and you attract the attention that can go into the value that you're providing. So if it's a newsletter, if it's a product, if they're trying your product, they're able to join a community, they're able to join your newsletter, you're still able to nurture that relationship through providing value. So if you think about paid, it's an ignition, it is an accelerator, it helps you test faster, it helps you learn faster, and finally, it's an amplifier. So once you figure out, okay, this works because I see my unsub rates is low, I see my open rates is high, I see that people are giving me good qualitative feedback where they really appreciate. I start seeing people mentioning me online. Then this is something we can amplify. I think his name is Larry Kim, one of a marketer that I went to his workshop, and he says, content marketing and marketing sometimes is about putting out a lot of donkeys, and you find that one of them is a unicorn, and what you do is you strap a jetpack on that unicorn, you blast it off in space. So it's almost the same thing. Like when you're trying to figure out content market fit, when you're trying to figure out what is the value that your community is looking for and how do we create a sense of belonging, you try different things and you invite them to tell you. That increases your chances of success. But once you find that thing they're looking for, and if you have paid budget, I would say a paid is like the jetpack, it accelerates it. So in Hey Orca's case, we found that social media managers actually want to have a morning paper. You wouldn't think, right? Like a daily. So we send our newsletter every single day on the weekdays, which is crazy. You think like, oh yeah, your open rates must be horrible. Like who wants to read that? But actually our open rates are 60%. 60% every single day. The reason is because of the value. So it's not about the frequency. So what we learned was it's not about the frequency. So we always think about what's the best practice of the frequency? How many times should I send? But the better question is, what is the value? The value should dictate the frequency. So instead of saying, I will only tell you to do twice a month or once a month, instead ask yourself, like, what is the value? Does the value actually justify the frequency? So because we are tracking the social media news every single day, it justifies the daily frequencies that we can send to our network. And so once we found that, we just strap a jetpack on it. We call it the morning paper for social media managers. And then we just run ads and say, come join our community. This is a morning paper for social media managers. And that's the entry point. That's the gateway to our community. And from there, you're able to experience our webinars, you experience our product, you experience our Facebook group and deeper layers within our community. So that's how I see paid. It's an ignition, accelerator, and it's an amplifier or a jetpack once you find your unicorn.
So interesting. Yes, I would assume that if you were sending emails out every single day, that your open rate would fall.
Yeah.
I think any cookie cutter advice would tell you that. Do not send
every single day, right? Like it's like kind of annoying.
Yeah, you're going to get unsubscribes, right, on mass. That goes to show the real value of understanding your people and plugging into what they need oftentimes isn't found in some cookie cutter advice. And a lot of the cookie cutter advice comes from AI. And I'm not going to get away without talking about AI in this episode here, but we could simply plug in a line in AI and ask them, what's the best email marketing practice right now? And it would spew out something that would not suggest what you are doing in your business. And so I want to know from your perspective, how do you see AI making community-led marketing increasingly important and not less?
Okay, so this is my hot take. So this week, and my team knows, I am going through a season of AI fatigue. I'm so sick. Yeah, I'll just say it. I'm so sick of seeing so much AI stuff, like AI this, AI that, how I parent my kids with AI. And now I'm like starting to get parenting advice, right? Like how I open call my kids' schedule and stuff. It's all very fascinating. But I'm actually finding myself quite fatigued with AI. You can't scroll 2 scrolls without not seeing the word AI. And so I think that more and more people are going to get fatigued just because of the frequency and the intensity that you're being hit with AI, this and that. And because of that, people are going to crave more analog experience, in my opinion. I think like people are going to crave more authentic experience. And so when you think about authentic experience or human-based experience, you're thinking about things that like what we're doing right now, a conversation, a webinar, things that you just cannot fake. And the ultimate form that I always say is in real life events. These things take effort, yes, but I think that if we get the formula right, if we understand the value that our audience is looking for, and we can create a sense of belonging, then we have a unicorn. And once we have that, then we strap a jetpack on it and go. So I think from an AI perspective, it's very good to brainstorm. It's very good at summarizing things. So I was thinking a little bit more about what makes slop and what makes AI actually good AI. In my opinion, like slop comes when it is surface level. You ask a question, it gives you, and you think you know all the best practices of email marketing. It doesn't come from lived experience. It is basically a very surface level platitude, which is why a lot of content feels very sloppy, because it sounds so polished, sounds nice on the surface, but it lacks depth. And so I think AI shines when it comes to brainstorming and ideation, when you're actually trying to get inspiration. And it also shines in summary as well, like insights, summary. But I think humans have to add the depth, the lived experience and the relationship shouldn't be automated, shouldn't be an AI job. And we're still in the very early days of AI, and you start seeing community platforms, even Facebook groups. I don't know if you know this, but Facebook group, you can actually activate a Facebook group AI moderator and actually interact with your people, interact with the people that are asking questions. Some people really like it, but in my opinion, these are the things that you just don't automate because people are still wanting to connect. I didn't join a Facebook group so that I can talk to a bunch of AI, right? So I think these are very interesting experiments that people are doing. And recently, Sora, the video platform for OpenAI, just got shut down. I think it's also a trend where that's not the best use of their energy because nobody is going there to actually consume more AI content. Mm-hmm. And so I think AI helps us be more efficient, helps us brainstorm, helps us ideate, helps us refine. But one thing that we always say in Hey Orca is that AI has to be bookended by humans. Humans put the lived experience and the input, and whatever output that it's refining, humans have to be the final approval and the final edits around things that are going out. So when we're creating our AI in our platform, we're starting to ask ourselves that question. How do we not contribute to AI slop? We need the point of view that we're putting into our program so that you're not able to just say, hey, give me 30 posts, fill out my content calendar. And we might lose a bunch of customers or a bunch of prospective customers because our system's just not going to be built to do that. But it's a stance that we're taking where we feel that AI should elevate creativity, refine things, and help brainstorm and spark ideas, but it shouldn't be contributing to slop. And so it's a very interesting time, especially when you're building products, like where do you stand? And then from a marketing perspective, I think people are going to be so fatigued of AI that you're going to draw back from digital spaces and actually look for analog experience. So like in real life events, I think people are going to look more for these experiences.
Let me first start by saying congratulations on creating a company that is adding to creativity and avoiding slop. I think it takes a lot of guts to build towards that vision because, yeah, you could add something that, like you just said, can help someone pump out 30 posts in a minute, but that doesn't add to creativity. And for the most part, we just talked about it here. It doesn't mean that those 30 posts that you can pump out in a minute are going to create any engagement.
Yeah.
It's quite the opposite. It might actually turn people off. And much like you, I do have AI fatigue too. And the more you are online, I'm on LinkedIn quite a lot. I have a nose for it. If you all have a nose for it, right? And so writing 30 posts in a minute, that screams unfollow for me. In any case, I want to say, I think that's a great thing to work towards, to build towards, to make your company different. So thank you for sharing that. I'll say this as well too. I don't think I'm ever going to get this idea of a unicorn with a jetpack strapped on its back out of my head for a while.
Yeah, it's all about consistency. So if someone's leaning on like community, it comes down to we need to find what the value is. Like, why are people coming to us? And you know, that picture of the donkey, a lot of things that you're going to put out are donkeys. We just got to accept that. And really, if we want to make this work and we believe that this is a sustainable way to do marketing, and we believe that creating a sense of community is the way to go, then it's about consistently testing what people are looking for. And once we find it, we scale it. And that's where paid ads come in. And so it's not one or the other. It's definitely both.
Thank you, Joe. Okay. If you had to leave listeners with one test for their own marketing, what would it be right now?
Yeah, I think really it comes down to participation, right? Really looking at your participation signal. So it's not just engagement, but will people participate in what we're putting out? So really asking, what is a level deeper than just liking our post? What is a level deeper that we want them to participate, just more than just like commenting? Perhaps if we're putting out an ebook and we want them to participate and actually contribute to it, what's the participation rate? If we have a webinar, will people come? And so really understanding likes tells part of the story, tells that, okay, this is kind of resonating. But really look at participation signals. Are people saving it? Are people sending it to other people? Are people joining our challenge? And so really going deeper around the participation, and are people talking to us through the comment section or DMing us? So I would challenge people to really think about not just the vanity signals, but really ask yourself, what is the participation signals that we're looking for? If it's social, are people sending us messages, resharing it? If it's webinars, are we seeing people participating in the chat? If it's a newsletter, are we seeing people actually joining our survey or replying to our questions? This gives you a sense of like the depth of the relationship that you have with your audience.
Thank you so much, Joe. It was an absolute pleasure having you here on the podcast and chatting. If people want to find you, or if they want to learn more about Hey Orca, how can they do that?
Yeah, so you can go to LinkedIn. We are very active on LinkedIn, and you search Hey Orca, HEYORCA would be the best bet. And then if you're interested in checking out Hey Orca as a social media management platform, you can go to heyorca.com. So HEYORCA.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn. So just search Joe Teo, JOETEO on LinkedIn. And yeah, our whole team is currently doing actually a personal branding challenge. So you'll see a bunch of them posting and really going hard on the challenge as well, because there are prizes at the end. So we're encouraging them to, again, participate and also really empathize with the day-to-day of a social media manager. So not just building products for them, but we want them to also empathize what a marketer goes through. So if you see any one of us on LinkedIn, definitely say hi to us in the comment section.
I love that you're empowering your team to show up as well. I think that is genius. And I might say one more thing. Don't forget to check out Joe's book. I'm going to put the link for that in the show notes as well. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with me at the Small But Mighty Agency podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to me if you hit the follow or subscribe button in your podcast app and share it with a friend. I'll see you on the next one.